There is belief, and then there is skepticism. And between the two lies a vast territory of questions and the unknown. But what if reality is far more complex than we've been willing to perceive? And what if the stories we dismissed as mere myth and legend hold the keys to understanding consciousness? From ghostly encounters to lights in the sky, humanity has always sensed there was something more out there. Some call it the paranormal, and others call it the divine. Some look to the stars for answers, while others search within. Philosophy asks why, theology asks who, science asks how, and we ask ourselves, what if? We stand at a meeting point, a place where the fabric between realities is thinner than you might think. This is Crossroads of the Veil. There are currents that run deep beneath the surface of history, hidden streams of knowledge flowing through the dark, forgotten channels of time. They carry secrets about the nature of our reality, the origin of our consciousness, and the ultimate destiny of humanity. These are not the stories you were taught in school. They are not the histories written by the victors. These are the whispers of the vanquished, the heresies of the outcast, the forbidden truths of the initiated. For centuries they have been suppressed, ridiculed, and driven into the shadows, but they have never truly disappeared. They have survived in cryptic texts, in allegorical symbols, in secret societies that guard their flame against the winds of orthodoxy. We journey back to a time of unprecedented change and upheaval, a time when the world was being remade. We travel to the sands of Hellenistic Egypt, to the sprawling cosmopolitan metropolis of Alexandria. Here, in this crucible of empires, faiths, and philosophies, two of the most powerful and enigmatic spiritual systems in Western history arose from the same fertile ground. They are like two estranged siblings, born of the same mother but with profoundly different views of the world. One, a path of cosmic optimism, of finding God in the beauty of a divine creation. The other, a path of radical pessimism, a desperate flight from a world it saw as a prison, ruled by a cosmic tyrant. They both promised the ultimate prize, Gnosis, a direct, personal, transformative knowledge of the divine, a key to unlock the shackles of mortal existence. But the doors they opened led to vastly different realities. One promised to make you a god within the cosmos. The other promised to help you escape it entirely. Join me as we descend into the archives of the forbidden, as we piece together the fragments of a lost history and decode the secrets of these twin paths of ascent. What we are about to uncover is more than just ancient history. It is a story that challenges the very foundations of our modern world, a mystery that echoes in the corridors of power, in the heart of our religion, and in the deepest questions we ask ourselves in the dead of night. The question of who we are and whether we are truly free. This is a secret war of ideas, a battle for the soul of humanity that has never truly ended. And it begins, as all great mysteries do, with a single tantalizing thread that, when pulled, threatens to unravel everything we thought we knew. Our story begins not with a philosopher in ancient Athens or a priest in the temples of Thebes, but with a farmer. The year is 1945. The world is reeling from the horrors of a global war, looking forward to a future of fragile peace and reconstruction. But in the remote desert of Upper Egypt, near the town of Nag Hammadi, a discovery was about to be made that would send shockwaves backward through time, rewriting the very history of Western thought. While digging for fertilizer near the base of the towering Jabal al-Tarif cliffs, a shovel strikes something hard, not rock but earthenware, a large sealed jar, nearly a meter high. His first thought was of treasure, of gold, but what he found inside was to some infinitely more valuable. 13 leather-bound papyrus books, filled with writings in the ancient Coptic language. He didn't know it at the time, but he had stumbled upon a ghost library, a collection of 52 texts that had been condemned, burned, and systematically erased from history for over 1,600 years. These were the lost gospels of the Gnostics. For centuries, all we knew of these so-called heretics came from the pens of their enemies. Church fathers painted them as depraved, delusional blasphemers. Their own voices were silent, buried beneath the sands of time and the weight of official doctrine. But now they spoke again, and their words were explosive. Here was a Gospel of Thomas containing secret sayings of Jesus, starkly different from the canonical Gospels. Here was the Apocryphon, the secret book of John, which revealed a creation story so bizarre, so radically different from Genesis, that it turned the traditional understanding of God on its head. Here were texts that spoke of a female divine principle, Sophia, or wisdom. Texts that claimed the God of the Old Testament was not the true God, but a blind, ignorant impostor. This discovery was the inciting incident for our investigation. It was proof that in the early days of Christianity, there wasn't one single unified faith, but a vibrant, chaotic, and often contradictory marketplace of ideas. And the Gnostics were not some minor fringe group. They were a powerful spiritual movement that posed a direct and profound threat to the emerging Orthodox Church. But the Nag Hammadi Library also cast a new light on another related mystery. It helped scholars better understand a parallel stream of thought, another system of gnosis that flourished in the same time and place: Hermeticism, named for the enigmatic figure of Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice greatest Hermes. This tradition also offered a path to divine knowledge. Its foundational text, the Corpus Hermeticum, spoke of a benevolent God, a divine cosmos, and humanity's potential to achieve godhood through reason and contemplation. So the discovery at Nag Hammadi presented us with a stark historical puzzle. Two paths to enlightenment, born in the same crucible of Hellenistic Egypt. Both sought gnosis, direct knowledge of God. Yet they were built on diametrically opposed foundations. One saw the world as a divine masterpiece. The other saw it as a demonic prison. Why? What historical forces, what human experiences, could lead to such radically different conclusions about the nature of reality itself? The unearthing of these forbidden books was not the end of a story. It was the beginning of a far deeper and more unsettling one. It was a summons to investigate a division in the human soul that occurred 2 millennia ago, a division whose aftershocks may still be shaping our world today. To understand the birth of these twin paths, we must transport ourselves to the world that spawned them, a world of profound anxiety, the world after Alexander the Great. His conquest shattered the old, stable order of the city-state and ushered in an age of vast empires. People who once had a clear identity as Athenians or Spartans were now subjects of multicultural kingdoms. Their sense of belonging was eroding. The center of this new world was Alexandria, the city Alexander founded on the coast of Egypt. It was the New York, the London, the Tokyo of its day, a dazzling metropolis where East met West. In its legendary library, the greatest minds of the age gathered. In its streets, Greek philosophers debated in the Agora, while Egyptian priests performed ancient rites in temples dedicated to Isis and Osiris. Jewish scholars who had translated their scriptures into Greek wrestled with how their monotheistic faith fit into this new world. This was the crucible, a pressure cooker of ideas and beliefs. And out of this intense spiritual and intellectual chaos, a new kind of religious hunger was born. The old public cults and civic religions were no longer enough. People felt disconnected and adrift in a cosmos that seemed increasingly vast and indifferent. They began to search for something more personal, more experiential, a path to salvation that didn't depend on the state but on a direct, individual connection to the divine. It is here that we see the first clear divergence. Two archetypal figures emerge from this, offering two very different answers to this crisis of meaning. First, there is the figure of Hermes Trismegistus. He is the very embodiment of Alexandrian syncretism. He is a fusion of the Greek god Hermes, the messenger, the interpreter, the god of boundaries and transitions, and the ancient Egyptian god Thoth, the ibis-headed scribe of the gods, the master of wisdom, magic, and writing. This new composite deity, Hermes the thrice greatest, became the divine teacher for a new philosophy. Hermeticism was born from a deep reverence for the past, an attempt to synthesize the rationalism of Plato with the ancient, mystical wisdom of Egypt. It looked at the world, at the stars, at the cycles of the Nile, and saw a divine, ordered, and fundamentally good cosmos, a sacred text waiting to be read. But another voice arose from the same crucible, a more discordant, more radical voice. This was the voice of the Gnostic. The Gnostics were not synthesizers, they were revolutionaries. They looked at the same world, the same empires, the same political corruption, the same human suffering, and they saw not a divine order, but a cosmic catastrophe. They drew upon Jewish apocalyptic literature, with its visions of a world under the sway of dark powers. They took Plato's idea of a perfect world of forms and its imperfect material copy, and they radicalized it. What if this world wasn't just an imperfect copy, they asked, but a deliberate forgery, a prison built by an ignorant, malevolent creator? This was the inciting incident in our grand narrative, the rise of two opposing answers to the same existential question. In a world of dislocation and uncertainty, do you seek salvation by integrating yourself into a divine cosmos, or by escaping from a cosmic prison? The choice you made would set you on one of two very different paths: the path of the Hermetic magician philosopher, or the path of the Gnostic spiritual rebel. The stage was set for a conflict that would unfold in the hidden corners of the human mind. Every belief system, every path to enlightenment is built upon a foundational story, a cosmology, an explanation of where everything came from and what it all means. And it is here, at the level of their creation myths, that Hermeticism and Gnosticism diverge so dramatically that they become mirror opposites. To understand their paths, we must first understand the maps of reality they were using. Let's begin with the Hermetic cosmos. The Hermetic worldview is one of profound, breathtaking unity. At its heart is a single ultimate reality, referred to by many names: God, the Father, the One, but most comprehensively, the All. This God is both beyond the universe and is the universe. The core Hermetic axiom, later famously articulated in the Kybalion, states, "The All is mind, the universe is mental." Think about that. Creation wasn't a physical act, like a craftsman building a chair. It was a mental act. The universe is a thought, taking place within the infinite mind of God. And because this God is defined as inherently good, its creation, the cosmos, is also fundamentally good, beautiful, and ordered. It is not a fall from grace, it is a glorious expression of the divine imagination. The stars, the planets, the plants, the animals, you and I, we are all thoughts in the mind of God. In this worldview, humanity holds a special place. We are created as a microcosm, a small-scale model of the macrocosm. We are a mortal God, endowed with a physical body to experience the material world, but also with a spark of the divine mind itself, a faculty called nous. This inner mind is our connection to the all. It is the eye of the soul, capable of perceiving the divine reality hidden behind the veil of the senses. The purpose of human life, in the Hermetic view, is to use this nous to come to know God by contemplating His creation, thereby completing a divine circuit of self-discovery. It's a philosophy of optimism, of integration, of finding your sacred place in a sacred world. Now hold that image in your mind, and let us cross the threshold into the Gnostic cosmos. Prepare yourself, because this is one of the most bizarre and terrifying creation stories ever conceived. The Gnostics also believed in a supreme, ultimate God. But this God was the polar opposite of the Hermetic all. The Gnostic God is utterly transcendent, unknowable, and most importantly, completely alien to our universe. This alien God did not create our world and has nothing to do with it. The realm of the true God is the pleroma, the fullness, a purely spiritual plane of existence inhabited by divine emanations called eons. The Gnostic creation myth is a story of cosmic tragedy. It begins when the lowest of these eons, a female entity named Sophia, which means wisdom, suffers a passion. In an act of hubris or loneliness, she desires to create something on her own, without the permission of the ultimate Father and without her divine consort. Her unauthorized act results in a cosmic abortion. A monstrous, malformed being is born out of her, a creature of ignorance and arrogance. His name is Yaldabaoth. The Gnostics also call him Sackless, the fool. This is the Demiurge, the craftsman. Cast out of the pleroma, ignorant of the true God above him, this Demiurge looks around at the chaos and arrogantly declares, "I am God, and there is no other God but me." He then proceeds to create the material universe, our world, as a flawed and corrupt imitation of the pleroma he dimly intuits but does not understand. And in the ultimate act of cosmic theft, he traps sparks of the divine light that had fallen from his mother, Sophia, into the bodies of his chief creation, humanity. Do you see the terrifying implication? In the Gnostic view, our world is a prison. The stars and planets are not guides to divine wisdom, but the bars of our celestial cell, each one governed by a sinister warden, an archon or ruler. And the God that most of the world worships, the God of the Old Testament who declares, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me," is not the true God at all. He is our jailer. He is the Demiurge. This is the point of no return in our story. We have now seen the two maps. One shows a path to becoming a god in a divine home. The other shows a path of escape from a demonic prison. Every step, every ritual, every secret teaching that follows is a direct consequence of which of these two cosmic maps you believe to be true. The battle for the soul has begun, and the nature of reality itself is what's at stake. So we have two irreconcilable views of the cosmos, one a divine thought, the other a cosmic prison. Now we come to the complication, the point that makes this ancient conflict so intensely personal, because both systems agree on one startling thing. There is something divine inside of you, a spark of God. But the nature of that spark, its origin and its purpose, this is where the stakes are raised to a terrifying degree. This is the question that defines the human condition in each system. In the Hermetic tradition, that divine element is your nous, your spiritual mind. It is a gift, a fragment of the universal mind of God, intentionally placed within you. This makes you unique among all of creation. You are the bridge between the material and the spiritual. As the Hermetic texts say, you are a mortal God. Your body is mortal, but your essence, your mind, is divine. Your purpose, therefore, is one of noble stewardship. You are here to learn, to grow, to understand the divine symphony of creation, and, through that understanding, to come to know your own divine nature. The problem, the only real evil in the Hermetic system, is ignorance. It is the state of being so distracted by the passions and appetites of the physical body that you forget the God within. You become so focused on the shadows on the cave wall that you forget you are a child of the sun. The path of Hermeticism is a path of remembrance. It is a process of purifying the lower self to allow the higher self, the nous, to awaken and take its rightful place as the ruler of your inner kingdom. It is a path of fulfilling your potential within a benevolent cosmic plan. Now, let us feel the pinch of the Gnostic alternative. The Gnostics also speak of a divine spark. They call it the pneuma, the spirit. But this spark is not a gift. It is plunder. It is not a natural part of you. It is a fragment of the light of the alien god, a piece of the pleroma that was stolen by the Demiurge and forcibly implanted into the prison of the material body, the soma, and the psychological soul, the psyche. Your body is not a temple, it is a tomb. Your mind, your thoughts, your emotions are not yours. They are the programming of the archons, the cosmic jailers, designed to keep you asleep, distracted, and ignorant of your true identity. The human condition, for the Gnostic, is one of profound, horrifying slumber. You are a god in exile, a prisoner of war who has forgotten the war is even happening. You are living in a state of cosmic amnesia, drugged by the pleasures and pains of a world designed to keep you enslaved. The Gnostic texts use powerful metaphors for this state: intoxication, sleep, deep forgetfulness. The world is a counterfeit spirit, a system designed by the archons to keep you recycling through birth and death, your divine light serving as a battery to power their corrupt cosmos. This is the complication that makes the Gnostic path so urgent, so desperate. It's not about fulfilling your potential. It's about staging a prison break. It's not about remembering you are a god. It's about being reminded that you are a hostage. The central question becomes terrifyingly stark. Are you a student in a cosmic university, or are you a captive in a cosmic prison? The answer to that question determines whether you need a philosopher's guide or an escape plan. Both paths agree the key is inside you, but one claims it unlocks the door to your home, while the other insists it unlocks the door to your cell. We stand now at the point in our journey, the moment of truth for any seeker who has walked these paths. We've established the conflicting maps of reality and the opposing views of the human condition. Now, the call to action arrives, the moment of awakening, the reception of Gnosis. But how does this knowledge arrive? Is it something you can find for yourself, or is it something that must be brought to you? This is where the two traditions reflect each other in a fascinating and revealing opposition. Let's first walk the Hermetic path to its moment of revelation. The Hermetic awakening is not a sudden shock, but the culmination of a gradual, disciplined process. It is a journey inward. The seeker, having recognized that ignorance of God is the root of all suffering, makes a conscious choice. They turn their mind away from the distractions of the world. They begin the great work. This involves two parallel practices. First, the contemplation of the cosmos. They study the stars, not to predict the future, but to understand the divine, mathematical harmony of creation. They see the principle of as above, so below everywhere they look, in the orbit of a planet and the structure of a flower. They learn to see the universe as a reflection of the mind of God. Second, they turn that gaze inward. They begin the difficult work of purifying the mind and the senses. Through meditation, they learn to quiet the constant chatter of their thoughts, to still the clamor of their physical desires. They create a space of profound inner silence, and it is in that silence that the call is answered. This is the experience described in the most famous of all Hermetic texts, the Poimandres. The seeker, having stilled his senses, is met in a vision by a being of immense light and power. This being identifies himself as Poimandres, the shepherd of men, the divine mind itself. In this ecstatic, out-of-body state, the divine mind reveals to the seeker the secrets of creation, the nature of humanity, and the path of the soul's ascent after death. This is the Hermetic Gnosis. It is a revelation, but it is a revelation that is earned. It is an awakening of the divine nous that was already within. The door was unlocked from the inside. Poimandres is the personification of a universal truth that the seeker, through their own efforts, has made themselves ready to perceive. It is a moment of profound self-realization, a merging of the individual mind with the universal mind. Now, let's turn to the Gnostic path. Look in the mirror. If the Hermetic seeker unlocks the door from the inside, the Gnostic prisoner hears a frantic pounding on the door from the outside. The Gnostic cannot awaken themselves. The prison is too perfect. The slumber is too deep. The drugs of the material world are too potent. Salvation must come from beyond the prison walls. A message must be smuggled in. A revealer must descend from the alien, transcendent God, breaking through the layers of archontic control to deliver a wake-up call. In most Gnostic systems, this revealer is Christ. But this is not the historical Jesus, the man of flesh and blood. The Gnostic Christ is a pure spiritual being, an eon from the pleroma who only appears to have a human body. He is a divine phantom on a rescue mission. His purpose is not to die for our sins, a concept that would be meaningless in the Gnostic worldview, but to deliver the secret gnosis that can set the divine sparks free. This revelation is not found through contemplating the world. It is found by rejecting the world. It is delivered in secret, whispered to a select few disciples as in the opening of the Gospel of Thomas. These are the secret sayings that the living Jesus spoke. The gnosis he brings is the answer to the great existential questions. Who we were before we were thrown into this prison, what we have become, where we are going, and from what we are being redeemed. To receive this knowledge is the moment of awakening. It is a shocking, terrifying, yet ultimately liberating realization. It is the moment the prisoner realizes they are in a prison. Two paths, both leading to Gnosis, but one is a philosophical journey of self-discovery. The other is a clandestine operation, a spiritual jailbreak initiated by an outside agent. One is a process of evolution. The other is an act of revolution. The path you choose from this point depends entirely on whether you believe the truth is found by looking at the world, or by listening for a secret message that tells you the world is a lie. Every story has its symbols, images that carry a weight far beyond their literal meaning. And in the secret war between Hermeticism and Gnosticism, no symbol is more potent, more ambivalent, and more revealing than the serpent. In the traditions that would become our mainstream, the serpent is the villain, the tempter in the Garden of Eden, the embodiment of chaos, deceit, and evil, a creature of the dust, forever at odds with the divine. This is the story we all know. But what if that story is a lie? What if it's propaganda written by the warden to discredit the first freedom fighter? This is the reversal, the second pinch point in our narrative, and it is one of the most audacious and mind-bending moves in the entire Gnostic playbook. Many Gnostic sects, most famously the group known as the Ophites, which literally means serpent worshippers, performed a breathtaking act of theological jujitsu. They took the story of Genesis and turned it completely inside out. Ancients, in their view, the God who was walking in the garden, the one who forbade Adam and Eve from eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge, was not the true God. He was the Demiurge, Yaldabaoth, an arrogant, jealous tyrant, desperate to keep his human creations ignorant and subservient. He didn't want them to have knowledge, because knowledge would not make them like him. It would reveal his own limitations. So who then was the serpent? In this radical retelling, the serpent was the hero. He was a messenger, a revealer sent by the true God above, or by the fallen mother, Sophia. He came to offer Adam and Eve the one thing that could save them, Gnosis, knowledge. He wasn't tempting them to sin. He was inviting them to awaken. The original sin was not disobedience. It was the ignorance the Demiurge sought to enforce. The serpent was the first Gnostic teacher. This is a stunning reversal. It forces us to ask, who is the real deceiver? The being who says you must remain ignorant, or the being who says your eyes will be opened? This Gnostic rereading of Eden is an act of supreme spiritual rebellion. It reframes the pursuit of knowledge not as a transgression, but as the highest possible virtue. Now let's contrast this with the Hermetic view of the serpent. Here the serpent is not a symbol of rebellion, but of wisdom, transformation, and integration. Think of the Ouroboros, the serpent eating its own tail. For the Gnostic, this might symbolize the endless, hopeless cycle of reincarnation in a prison world. But for the Hermetic alchemist, the Ouroboros is a profound symbol of the unity of all things, of the eternal cycle of destruction and creation that is the engine of the cosmos. It represents the great work of turning the lead of the ignorant self into the gold of the enlightened sage. And then there is the most famous Hermetic symbol of all, the caduceus, the staff of Hermes, with two serpents winding around it in perfect balance. These serpents represent the dual forces of the cosmos, light and dark, spirit and matter, positive and negative. The goal of the Hermetic path is not to have one conquer the other, but to bring them into perfect, harmonious equilibrium. The staff they climb is the human spine, the central axis of the self, and the wings at the top represent the liberated mind, the nous, that has achieved this integration and is now free to ascend. Here is the pinch, the reversal, made manifest in a single symbol. For the Gnostic, the serpent represents a revolutionary knowledge that shatters a false order. It is a weapon. For the Hermeticist, the serpent represents an evolutionary wisdom that balances the forces of a true order. It is a tool. The Gnostic serpent urges you to break the chains of the cosmos. The Hermetic serpent teaches you to master the energies of the cosmos. The gift is the same, knowledge, but its purpose is diametrically opposed. We have arrived at the final frontier, the threshold between life and death. For both the Hermetic sage and the Gnostic initiate, the moment of physical death is not an end, but the beginning of the final, critical journey, the ascent of the soul back to its source. Both traditions inherited a common cosmological map from the ancient world, a geocentric universe, with the Earth at the center, surrounded by the nested spheres of the 7 classical planets, Moon, Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Beyond them lay the 8th sphere, the realm of the fixed stars, and beyond that, the ultimate divine reality. The soul, upon leaving the body, must travel through these spheres. But this is where our paths diverge into their final dramatic opposition. This is the ultimate crisis, because what should be a journey home becomes for one tradition a desperate flight through enemy territory. Let's first follow the Hermetic soul. For the student of Hermes, the ascent is the final stage of purification. It is a logical and orderly process. The soul, having been prepared through a life of contemplation and self-mastery, begins its journey upward. At each planetary sphere, it encounters the force that governs that realm. But instead of a battle, it is a process of relinquishment. The soul gives back the psychic garment or negative passion that it took on from that sphere during its original descent into incarnation. As described in the Poimandres, at the sphere of the moon, it sheds the impulse of growth and decay. At Mercury, it gives back its cunning and deceit. At Venus, its lusts. At the Sun, its domineering arrogance. At Mars, its rashness. At Jupiter, its greed. And finally, at the highest planetary sphere, Saturn, it sheds the falsehood that ensnares. Having stripped itself of all these lower, irrational energies, the soul is now naked spirit. It is pure nous. It ascends into the 8th sphere, where it joins the chorus of the enlightened, singing praises to the Father. It is a journey of unburdening, a final purification before the ultimate goal, theosis, or union with the All. It is a homecoming. Now we must follow the Gnostic soul on its ascent. And this is not a homecoming. This is the final, terrifying level of the prison. This is the disaster. For the Gnostic, the planetary spheres are not realms of purification. They are cosmic toll stations, interstellar border checkpoints, each one guarded by a monstrous and malevolent archon. These are the jailers, the servants of the Demiurge. Their sole purpose is to prevent the divine sparks from escaping their prison universe. They are the celestial police, and their job is to enforce the law of fate and to hurl any soul that tries to escape back down into the cycle of reincarnation. The Gnostic soul's ascent is a terrifying gauntlet. At each gate, the Archon confronts the soul, interrogates it, and tries to block its passage. As described in Gnostic texts, these beings are depicted as grotesque hybrids, often with the heads of animals, lions, serpents, crocodiles, representing their bestial, subdivine nature. How does the soul pass? Not through purity, but through knowledge. The Gnostic initiate has spent their life acquiring the secret passwords, the magical seals, and the correct responses needed for this final confrontation. When the Archon of Mars challenges the soul, it must present the proper seal and speak the proper formula to prove its superiority. It essentially has to show its celestial passport, proving it does not belong to this cosmic jurisdiction. The soul must outsmart and defy its jailers. It declares its independence from their creator and their laws. It sheds the alien garments of the body and soul that were imposed upon it, and by using the power of its gnosis, it breaks through each gate. This is the ultimate crisis, the horrifying realization that heaven itself is a hostile, guarded territory. The journey to God is not a gentle ascent, but a desperate, high-stakes escape. The disaster is not just dying in ignorance, but failing this final test and being thrown back into the darkness, to forget once more, to begin the nightmare all over again. The Hermetic soul is welcomed home. The Gnostic soul must fight its way out of the belly of the beast. We have reached the climax, the final destination. The soul has passed the final gate. The journey, whether a process of purification or a desperate escape, is over. What lies beyond? What is the ultimate prize for which the Hermetic sage and the Gnostic initiate have striven? This is the moment of truth, the final union, and in their profound opposition, they reveal the ultimate stakes of this entire secret history. First, the Hermetic soul. Having passed the 7 planetary spheres and entered the 8th sphere, the Ogdoad, it has achieved palingenesis, spiritual rebirth. It is no longer a man, but a power. It has reclaimed its divine nature. Now the final step occurs. This is theosis, divinization. It is not the annihilation of the self, but the expansion of the self to encompass everything. The individual nous, the spark of mind, joyfully merges back into the universal nous, the mind of God. The drop returns to the ocean, but it does so consciously. The soul, as the texts say, becomes God. But this is not an escape from creation. It is the ultimate embrace of it. By uniting with the mind that thinks the universe into being, the soul becomes a conscious co-creator. It understands the divine symphony from the perspective of the composer. It experiences the bliss of being both the created and the creator. The purpose of its long journey through matter has been fulfilled. It has learned the lessons of the cosmos and has taken its rightful place within it. The Hermetic heaven is a state of active, blissful, conscious participation in a divine and eternal cosmic process. The circuit is complete. The all has come to know itself through you. Now the Gnostic soul, having fought its way past the last of the archons, having stripped off the final alien layers of its psychic prison, the divine spark is free. It shoots upward, beyond the corrupt cosmos, beyond the realm of the Demiurge and his counterfeit creation. It breaks through the final veil and enters the pleroma, the fullness, the realm of the true alien God. And what happens here is not a merging with the cosmos, but a final absolute reunion away from it. The spark of light returns to its source. The exile has come home. The Gnostic texts describe this moment with profound joy and relief. The soul is welcomed back by its divine mother, Sophia, and by the ultimate Father. The wound in the pleroma, caused by Sophia's fall, is partially healed by this return. The Gnostic heaven is a state of rest, a release from the struggle, a return to a place of pure, unadulterated spirit, where the horror and chaos of the material world can be forgotten. The union is one of being restored to one's true nature in one's true home. It is a state defined by what it is not. It is not material. It is not subject to time. It is not subject to fate. It is not the creation of the Demiurge. This is the ultimate climax, the final, stark choice. Two visions of paradise. One is the paradise of the artist, who finally understands and becomes one with his masterpiece. The other is the paradise of the escaped prisoner of war, who finally makes it back across the border to their homeland. One is a heaven of integration. The other is a heaven of extraction. One finds God in everything. The other finds God by escaping from everything. This is the ultimate truth that both paths reveal. Your destiny depends entirely on your diagnosis of reality. And so we return from the cosmic heights, back to our own time, back from the sands of Egypt, from the libraries of Alexandria, from the very edge of reality itself. We have followed two paths to their ultimate conclusions. The path of the Hermeticist, culminating in a blissful union with the divine cosmos, and the path of the Gnostic, culminating in a joyful escape from a cosmic prison. It would be easy to file this away as ancient history, a curious footnote in the development of Western religion and philosophy, a battle fought and decided long ago, with the Gnostics losing and the Hermetic tradition being absorbed into the undercurrents of alchemy and esotericism. But I believe that would be a mistake. I believe the conflicts we have uncovered are far from over. The questions it raises are not historical artifacts. They are alive. They are urgent, and they echo in the most unexpected corners of our modern world. The fundamental divisions between the Hermetic and Gnostic worldviews, is the universe a meaningful home or an accidental prison, is a question we are still asking. Think of our own modern cosmologies. On one hand, you have the scientists and philosophers who look at the universe with a kind of secular reverence. They see the elegant laws of physics, the intricate dance of cosmic evolution, the improbable emergence of life and consciousness, and they feel a sense of awe and wonder, a sense of belonging to a grand, meaningful, if not divinely orchestrated process. Is this not a modern echo of the Hermetic worldview? A search for Gnosis through the contemplation of the cosmos? On the other hand, you have a deep strain of existential dread that runs through modern thought. The feeling that the universe is a cold, random, and meaningless accident. That consciousness is a cruel cosmic joke, a fleeting spark in an indifferent void, doomed to be extinguished. The feeling of alienation, of being a stranger in a strange land, is a powerful force in our art, our literature, our philosophy. Is this not the shadow of the Gnostic worldview? The intuition that we are not at home here, that something is fundamentally wrong with the nature of things. The questions become even more personal. Have you ever looked up at the night sky and felt an overwhelming sense of peace and interconnectedness, a feeling of being part of something vast and beautiful? That is the Hermetic experience. Have you ever looked at the world, at its brutality, its injustice, its sheer absurdity, and felt a profound sense of alienation, a gut feeling that this can't be all there is, that you don't belong here, that you are an exile from an unknown home? That is the Gnostic experience. The Gnostic myth of the Archon, the cosmic rulers who keep us enslaved through distraction and deceit. Does it not find a modern echo in our anxieties about systemic control, about media manipulation, about the hidden forces that shape our lives without our consent. The Hermetic path of self-mastery and inner alchemy, does it not resonate with our modern quest for self-improvement, for mindfulness, for unlocking our human potential? The twin paths of Hermes and the Gnostics are not just ancient history. They are two psychological archetypes, two fundamental ways of experiencing reality. They force us to ask the ultimate, unanswered question: what is the true nature of the world we find ourselves in? And what is the true nature of the consciousness that is asking the question? We are left here, at the crossroads of the veil, with the evidence laid before us. A choice, not necessarily between two belief systems, but between two ways of seeing. The mystery was not solved with the discovery at Nag Hammadi. It was merely presented to us once more. The final gnosis, the ultimate truth, is not something that can be given to you in a podcast or in an ancient text. It is a discovery that you, the seeker, must make for yourself. The only question is, where will you begin to look? As we step back from the crossroads, remember the veil between the known and the unknown is thinner than you think. But the story doesn't end here. This is just the beginning. Because what we explore here is not just about the phenomena, but the journey that we are all on, searching for our meaning and purpose in life, seeking the knowledge and wisdom to solve the deeper mysteries in our universe, and to find and fulfill our destinies. Unexplained sightings, spirits, and science. They are all connected, and they have been interwoven into the grand tapestry of life. So remember, keep pulling at the threads, because this has been Crossroads of the Veil.